I'll just start recording here, YouTube, and then we'll go through this. Okay. So hello and welcome both. At this point, we have two more people other than me in this call, and this is our 39th PC Open discussion. So we'll go through the normals, and then as we talked about last week, we'll see some of the features or things that are being added into the product with the 2021 release wave 1. So if you are new and don't know how to register, here's the link where you register every week. If you are in the meeting and want to save the hassle of registering every week, then just drop your name and email address in the chat, and I'll make sure that you get invited every week going forward. I got a question this week, and based on that, I just want to announce it here that at 3 p.m. Indian Standard Time on every Friday, this links get expire, and then automation happens behind the scene, which builds this meeting invite and send it to everybody. So that is at the max, I guess I can stretch the registration for every week. So take that time, keep this time into notice while you're registering. I can't just enable it going forward. But yeah, if you send me an email, I'll add you on that particular week. Okay. So let's talk about what's coming up in terms of sessions. So Directions Asia, this time it's virtual. It's coming up on May 4th and 5th. Registrations are still open. And as this is Directions, it's only for Dynamics NAV or Business Central partners only. For the first time in my 10 years with Dynamics NAV and Business Central, this is free to attend. So go to Directions website, register there, and I'm pretty sure there will be pretty good, cool stuff about the new releases and what change into the product with this new release will be available in Directions Asia. And if I'm not wrong, let me try to find the site. The site should be Directions Asia. Yeah, so the site is Directions for Partner. So if you go to the Directions for Partner and then filter out on the top Directions Asia, you will get the registration link. This is for 2022, that is next year. But let me make it big. In the events Directions Asia 2021, and you can just go ahead and register with your business ID that you have, business email ID as partner. So utilize that and do register for the event that's coming up early next month. Okay. And then last week we discussed a question about generic charts in Business Central. So I had some updates on it. And I don't remember whose question was that, but surprisingly, generic charts are still not supported with Business Central. I did try to create one, and it did let me create a chart part in the role center, but it's not yet supported with Business Central. And the details are available in this GitHub Microsoft link. So if you navigate to this link, you will find all the details, and it's in the development queue. So maybe in future this becomes something that is available in the product, but right now the generic charts are not available with Business Central modern client. And when I'm saying generic chart, there is a page in Business Central where you can define a simple chart based on a page, or sorry, a table or a query object, a two-dimensional chart. But that is still not implemented. So whosoever question was that, you'll either have to wait or use the another chart wizard that's available in Business Central to utilize the chart thing in Business Central. Okay. So now let's talk about what's new in the product. But before that, I found out something which was super interesting, and surprisingly, that was not added in 2021 release wave 1. It was already there. But based on a requirement, I was able to find it, which was our old insert trigger. So these are the two definition of insert trigger that we all know. You can do it, table dot insert without any parameters, which means that the run trigger is set as false because that's the default value of it, and it inserts a record in table without executing that the code that is written on the on insert trigger. And then the second variant that we all know is the insert with the run trigger, where you set it to true and then it executes the code which is written on the on insert trigger of that particular table. But because of the addition of the for system field, and I'm pretty sure we talked about it in past, the system ID, the system modified by, the system modified date, creation date, and created by, Microsoft added one more variant of the insert trigger with one more parameter called insert with system ID. So the insert with system ID, the default value is true. That means whenever you insert a record in a table, system will automatically generate a new GUID for that particular record. But there can be situations in your extension where you don't want to change the system ID. And for those kind of situation, Microsoft added this one more overload into the insert with two parameters now. The run trigger, which works as it is, but then insert with system ID. So let's understand why insert with system ID was added. And just to give you an example, I don't have a sample ready, but let's assume that you have a table extension, table in your extension, which is holding some business data. And in the next version of your extension, you're planning to kind of switch that table to a different structure. So from, let's say, from a table name ABC, you now want to move it to a different table called XYZ with more or less similar field, but for some reasons you have to change this. So now when we are changing the table that is behind the scene holding that data, we need to start worrying about the system ID. Because based on the system ID, all the external entities which are connecting from APIs, either it's Dataverse, either it's any external tool that is built, it is talking to your Business Central based on the system ID. And if you just do a insert true or insert while moving that data from the older schema to a newer schema, system will generate the new system ID and the external schema or the external utility that you have built will kind of treat that as new record being inserted, which is not true. You're not inserting the new records, you're actually moving them from table A to table B. So in situations like this, you don't want to change the system ID because it's directly related to an external assembly which might use it. So only for those situations, you can set this insert with system ID as false. Or let me see what this insert with system ID is doing. If the parameter is set to true, the code on insert is executed. Oh, it's run trigger. So let me open the VS Code and let's understand the second parameter. So let me create a new extension on my, against my Docker container of BC180 US sandbox. Let's download the symbol. Okay. So if I create a new file, just insert .al. Okay, so let's do a decode unit. Okay. And if I add, let's say, customer, oh God, customer, and if I try to do a customer dot insert, okay. So I do a true and then do a comma. I don't see that. Okay. Okay, it doesn't show the definition of this, but there should be a record.insert Microsoft help document. So let's go there. Let's see that. Okay. So when I read this, okay, insert with system ID. If this parameter is set to true, um, the system ID of the record is given a value that you explicitly assign. If the value is not assigned, then the platform assigns one. Okay. If the parameter is set to false, the system ID is given a value that is auto-generated by platform. So if you keep this value as true, then you can assign a system ID while doing the insert, which in the scenario that I explained you, which will be kind of transferred from the existing record or existing table set to the new table set. So keep this in mind when you're building your extension, that now insert also have an overload, which allows you to insert or not to insert with the existing system ID. So that's a new change, I guess, that might have been introduced with Business Central 15, because that was the time where Microsoft uh, allowed or added the system ID parameter, the system fields in all the tables. So yeah, keep that in mind, because now Business Central is not just Business Central as a standalone product. It's connected to the rest of the Dynamics 365 family or external systems based on the system ID. Okay, so I guess let's talk about the 4 or 5 things that I was able to figure out, which seems cool to me, and I didn't pay much attention to other things yet. So there is a feature added around the dimension. Which dimension values are allowed? Not the dimensions, which dimension values are allowed. And the way Microsoft did it is they added a new table of dimension value per account. And this feature works in your default dimension. And using this feature, it provides you an extra layer of filtering the dimension data while user can use it in the master record or during the transaction. So let's open and let's see that. Okay. So when you're on Business Central 18 and you go to any master record, let's go to customer. And from here, if you go to your, and this keep on changing, I guess. But if you go to your dimension, then this is kind of the basic setup that we have seen for all these years, which is what dimension you want to set for this customer. Is there a static value or a fixed value that you want to give? What type of value posting you want to follow? Is it code mandatory? Is it same code, or is it no code? And in the Business Central 18, you will see that there is one more field added called allowed value filter. So now let's understand it. The first thing is it only works when the value posting is code mandatory, because for other situation, if it is same code, then you can't filter out something. If there is no code, then you can't filter out. But if it is code mandatory, and let's say I don't give it a default value, and I say that it's code mandatory, that means a user will have to key in the area dimension before they start posting anything. But then at the same time, I want user to limit to a specific dimension that they can utilize while using this customer. As in, this is code mandatory, but that doesn't mean that they can input any value while using this record during a transaction. So let's say I say that they can only utilize 30, 70, or 80. And I click OK. I'll use that our segment management code unit and convert it to a filter. So now at this point, if customer number 1000 is used in a transaction, the area dimension is code mandatory. But at the same time, the user can only key in 30, 70, or between 70 and 80. So let's try that out. So let's put that value back here, 70, which will come as default. And let's try to create a new sales order for this. Sorry. So once the sales order is here, let's choose item. Okay, and then let's key in a quantity. So the area 70 would have automatically would have reached or kind of copied into the dimensions. So let's see that. Where is dimensions? Okay. So the default value came as 70. Now, if I change this to be 20, okay, it does allow it. I close it and save it. And then I go ahead and try to post this. Once you try to post it, the check line will check now your the filter that you have applied on your default dimension, and will give you a message that dimension value area 20 is not allowed for this customer. So this is kind of using that filter of your default dimension during a transaction. Anybody else have seen a reason behind it in the past why this will be needed? Because I'm pretty sure if they added it, there will be a reason from the partner community or from the customer community that would have come. Any use cases anybody can think of?
Well, I think it's just like if, I had a customer where they asked, like, I want the users to be able to see just the fixed assets they have created from the, purchase invoice. It goes the same way. They just need to see the dimensions I want them to use. Not sure that
Oh,
makes sense to you.
okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so this was kind of digged in as in I was doing something else, but I saw this and I started looking it into from the code perspective what changed and how they build this. But this is one thing that's added in Business Central 2021 Release Wave 1. So utilize that if you think that can be used in certain situation. Now, I know we all would have heard about adding keys to base table, and we were super excited about this feature when this was announced because everybody wanted it. Um, as an extension developer, we always wanted to have a key that we can add into the base table. Um, I tried it and I was super excited while I was using it or while I was trying it, but I was not that much excited when I actually understand the limitation of adding keys into using the table extension. So let's just try to add a key on my customer table. If I do a table extension, and let me zoom this in. Okay, so if I do my T table extension and do a customer extension, which targets to my customer table. Now I can come here and do add a keys area into it, and then add a key with name. And I like this thing of naming the keys. I don't know how they will utilize it, but I'm pretty sure they'll be able to utilize it some way in future. So now I can say that I want a key on any field that seems relevant, build to customer number, and then let's say blog. Now that's all sounds good, but most of the time where I needed a key is when I add a field here, which is, let's say, t field 50,000, and this is my BC field, and I want it to be, let's say, code of size 20. I do this customer content, and now I would like to have a key which is my BC key or BC key to be my BC field and let's say my bill to customer number. As soon as you do this, the compiler will generate an error message. And the error is the property BC key can only be set if the fields are from the same table, which means I can only do this. But when you start thinking about it, how or why that error message was generated when I was trying to do this, the error was that the property BC key can only be set if the fields that you are specifying in that particular key are from the same table. We need to consider how the extension model works. So let's publish this so that we can see that. Okay, publish without debugging. As this gets published, let me open my SQL server and bring it here on this. Okay. So if I do a table filter on where the table name is somewhere customer, I'll surely see my table extension that I just added, and I'll also see the base Microsoft customer table, right? That's our expectation over there. So let's figure this out. This is our customer table. And if I expand this, I'll see that there is a index that I just added. And the cool thing is that it adds index with the name that you have given to your key rather than using this number of 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you give a name to your key in your table extension, it will reflect the similar name in your SQL server behind the scene. That's my key. Now, let's understand the second key that we just created is here, the BC key. Now think logically, if we want a joint key between these two tables, they are actually two different tables behind the scene. And I don't know will Microsoft will in future will be able to achieve this, but this seems impossible because the field that I was trying to refer in the BC key was actually in this table, in the actual customer table. So it cannot actually create an index in SQL Server based on the fields that you are giving if you use a key which have fields from both tables, which is the base Microsoft table and your table extension. So it need to be from the same table per se when you are adding these keys. Any thoughts or questions on this? Or does that make sense? Because after checking on SQL, it made sense to me that why they are saying that they cannot add a key which are based on table fields from different tables.
So just so I get this straight, you could definitely create indexes based upon standard fields within the customer table. If you created a new extension, adding a new field, you can't just include that newly created field with existing fields.
Yes, because they both are in the different SQL tables.
Well, that blows.
Right. So this was already allowed in the past. With the new change, this is also allowed, but you can't do a join between the fields from the base table and the extension table. And I understand that was the situations where we will add a key because we want to add our custom field into an index so that our code can run faster. But yeah, that's kind of a platform dependency which made it impossible to do, I guess. So keep that in mind. If somebody says just add a key on my table, it's not that easy, or it's not possible to actually do certain things. It comes with its own flavor of limitations. The another cool thing that I found out is based on one of my recent customer interaction about bank payment imports. This was super pain, I guess, starting NAV 2018, where Microsoft introduced the data exchange definition. It was pretty configurable, but it was still hard to set it up. I have seen developers struggling throughout the day to find out the right way to set up the data exchange definition when they want to create a new data exchange for a bank statement import or any kind of import, I guess, at that point. So with Business Central 2021 Wave 1, what Microsoft did, and let's have a look on that, is they have added an assisted setup with which is part of this new extension. And I like the way Microsoft is approaching with all these new solutions. It's building all these small utilities rather than adding that all features into one giant base extension. So it makes sense to kind of split them into logical pieces so that customers and even partners can utilize and understand how that particular functionality is working. So let me go there. Okay. So once you are, and let me go to an empty company that I have so that I can show you what is not possible in an actual production company. So if you go to assisted setup and you look for bank import, bank file import, you'll find an assisted setup here to set up a bank statement file import format. Once you click on it, it starts a wizard and you can click next. It says, do you have a sample file of your bank? Do you want to utilize that, or do you want to define the layout of your bank statement file? Okay, I say, okay, I have a sample file somewhere stored in my local of type, okay, CSV, which have, let's open this, which have 4 fields right now, and I don't know they are required or not, but it have a bank number, it have a description, it have amount, and it also have a posting date. So let me give it some digits also. Okay, and we want to utilize this file to build our format. It imported successfully. You start going next and start reading your file. Now the first question is how many header lines you want to skip. This is line number 1, 2, 3, 4. If there are no headers, you can just say it's 0. If there is a header, like in this case, you can keep it 1 and say next. What is your field separator? It's a little bit limited right now that there are only 2 separators that are available, which is comma and semicolon. If you're using some other delimiters, maybe I haven't checked it, but I'm hoping that there will be a way to extend this. And then it gives you a column count, which is 4 columns at this point. Then it reads it and says that, okay, date seems to be on column number 4. Amount seems to be on column number 3, and description seems to be on column number 2. But I don't know what's this column number 1. So I'm kind of excluding this at this point. You click next, it asks you what date format, or it even sees what date format you are using and suggests you that. If that is different, you can change that. And if there is a decimal digit, you can use what kind of decimal separator you are using. You click next and it's ready to be used. And I name it as, let's say, PC open discussion. And I want to utilize it with my bank B001. Yes. And you click finish. Now, if you go to your data exchange definition, you'll see that that data exchange definition has been already updated based on the mapping that you have given. So if I see there should be a BC open discussion, yes. You can view this or you can edit it if you think that there are some changes. Here it says that it is detail, and then these are the columns that it automatically identified and created that setup for you. And now if you go to your bank reconciliation, you can actually okay, somewhere create a bank account reconciliation. Okay. Okay. And then you can import the bank statement. Because this is already set on B001, I can just go and select my file, and it's different from discussion. Okay, I did the value on line number 2, column 4 has an incorrect data time. Okay, I might have changed it. So it'll actually read those files. Now I was thinking that how there are so many fields, and how should I know that which fields should be can I actually provide while building my uh, data exchange framework. So the catch there is that it is based on where you are using it. So if you are using it on an evaluation company or a demo company like this, and you come to the same assisted setup and you try this, you see a sample option to download. So this gives you a kind of set of fields that you can utilize to set up your bank account reconciliation, which is a date field, account number, the name of account, what type of entry it is, amount, customer reference, transaction detail, and balance. So based on the sample file, what I'm understanding is that that assisted setup engine is able to translate all these fields into a data exchange definition. So if you have struggled with data exchange definition, do try this. This comes as a separate extension. So if you have recently upgraded a customer on-prem or things like that, then you might want to install this extension to test this process out. Okay. Uh, the next cool thing, or the next thing that I found out, may not be cool, is the permission set extension. So there is again a new object added in Business Central called permission set extension, which allows us to additively change base Microsoft permissions. And as I said, only additive, like any other extension object. I can only do additive changes on while using an extension object. In the similar way, you can also now add permission set extensions in your AL code. And that gives you flexibility to or save some time for administrator to not to assign that extension related permission to every user. And let's understand that how that is working. So when you are on your VS Code, and maybe this is a good example because there is already a table extension, I'll just add one more table. Okay. Table. Fail. Table. Okay. Table. Okay. Now in my extension, I have this table with, let's say, one field called primary key. _ 20. Now for this, I will create a permission set so that this table can be utilized by the users that are using it. And this is just a fake table, but assume this that it's a table that is part of your extension, which also means that I'll have a permission assigned to a permission that will be part of my extension related to all the tables that are part of my extension. So what I can do is I can do permission, generate permission set for current extension object, and I'll add an extension permission set XML, which gives me permission for all the objects in my project. And that permission set name is AL project 33, which is the name of this extension. Now, once this permission set has been added in my project as an XML, whenever I'll publish this extension, this permission set will also get published as an permission set of type extension, which is, let me open here. When you go into permission sets, you'll see that this type of extension type of permission will be added for the extension that I'm building. But then that there is an extra work that administrator have to do to assign these permission to those users, right? Otherwise, they'll not have the permission. So now what we can do using the permission extension, which is my permission extension .al, I can actually create a permission set extension and give it an ID. So it needs an ID, and it says let's identify a base Microsoft permission that we want to extend. And before we do that, okay, let's say it's simplified bank account, which right now have, if I go to permission, have these permission for these 8800 range objects. And let's assume I want to extend this. So anybody who have this will also get a permission to the extension that I'm writing, or the objects in that extension. So what I want to do is I want to extend this particular permission set, which is simplified bank statement. Okay, it's not found. Why it's not found? Because it is of type extension. Sorry, my bad. So let's pick one which is of type system. Let's say this D365 basic, which also means that we can only extend permission which are coming from Microsoft and are tagged as of type system. So if I see permissions around it, it have permissions for so many base objects, and I just want to add the permission that are part of my extension which I'm building. So I'm pretty sure that I can do this. Okay, and then I'm saying this as D365 basic for my extension, whatever that is, whatever this perm extension is called, AL project 33, just to keep it simple. Okay. So this new permission set extension, this name is extending this permission set. And then what you can do are two things inside a permission set. You can either add permission to specific objects into it by using the permissions, or you can also add a full-fledged built-in permission set that you have built by using include permission set. So if I use this and I say that all the permissions that are part of my permission set extension, which are part of, let me copy, oh sorry, which are part of this extension permission set. So if I do a extension permission set, it is not, oh, that's bad. It should. extensions. Oh, it's not reading this. This is bad. This should. Okay, that looks odd. Oh, I should read the name of this. Okay, so the name of this is AL Project 33, this permission set name. So include all with a, what is that name? AL Project 33. Include permission set AL Project. Oh, it doesn't read that. That's bad. But okay, let's try assigning this. Include permission set of that name, and it should read it.
So maybe you should just, paste the extensions permission set.xml, just see how it goes.
Okay. I think it should do this way, but okay, let's give it a try. No, it's missing. Okay. Okay, so let's do this. I'll just for a while comment this and I'll publish this with extension so that this extension get deployed, AL Project 33. And maybe then it'll read it. Because right now it's not part of the tenant, and maybe that's why it's not reading it. So if I publish it, okay, there is an error. And what is that? Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, reason the application object. Oh, there is already defined table 50100. Okay, table 50. So let's make it 6000. And in my app.json, I'll change it to 9 for a while. This becomes this, and I'll update my extension permission set of, or maybe I'll delete this file and regenerate this. Okay, so that's here now. Now let me publish this. Okay, so once this permission set got published, oh sorry, this extension got published. If I go to permission set, I should be able to see the extension permission of that I just published called AL Project 33. So now it's AL Project 33. So now if I come back to my VS Code, okay, and try to enable this, okay, and try to include a permission set, AL Project, no, okay, still bad. Let me download symbols, maybe you'll find a reference with that. Okay, symbols downloaded. AL Project. It should, but for some reason it's not. Permission set AL object 30, AL project 33 is missing. Okay, that should not be the case, but okay, this is what's written. I haven't tested it out, so maybe I'll test it out and we'll talk about it next week. But it says it's missing for some reasons, which seems irrelevant because now the extension is part of it, so and should be able to include the permission set for that. Okay, but the other option, I'll do some research. I'll come back next week about it. I thought it's pretty simple, but I think it's not. Let's see. So the other thing that you can do is you can add permissions, and then permission goes into a format, what type of object it is, I guess, and what is that, and then let's see if there is a permission format into it. Okay. So the permission property goes something like this. Okay. I can come here and I can say that add the permission for my table data, and this time I want to add my table that I just added 6000 of read, insert, modify, delete. Now again there is a problem. IDs are not supposed as object reference. Okay, that makes sense. So let's change it to the name. Okay, so now as soon as I publish this, the D365 basic permission set now will include permission for my test table. Now we need to remember, as we can do additive changes into these permissions, that we should respect the permission set which are already there. So let me explain you what that means. Is when I go into the permission set and filter for D365 basic, which is here, and I go into permissions, I'll be able to, I should be able to see at this point my object ID as, I guess, 60,000 or higher. Let's see. Right. So I can see my table into it. But as it's an additive change, and I'm pretty sure all of us who are here understand that permissions in one permission set or multiple permission set, system always consider the maximum permission that is assigned to you in the all the permission set that are assigned to your user. So just for example, if deferral header archive have an indirect insert, modify, and delete permission in this permission set, and while I'm trying to extend a permission set by using this, if I do a direct permission or direct insert, modify, delete to that particular permission set, then the maximum permission set is considered by the by the system while you're using the system. So make sure that you don't do any additive changes, or if you're doing that, you have taken that into account while you are using the permission set extension. Don't give them elevated permission which were not there earlier. Yes, yes.
Yeah, what I was saying that I just saw that the permission set which is included now, it shows indirect.
Right.
Direct permission set cannot be assigned.
That should be. So if I do a, how do you do a direct one via code? That's a good question. Let me just find that in the MSDN. Let's see that. When I do a permission, oh sorry, I can't do it multiple times. I can just add things into it. Okay. If I do a get help, specify direct as R capital or R small as indirect. Okay, so anything on capital goes as direct, anything on small goes as indirect.
Pretty cool.
Right? So if I add one more, let's say in this case, if I say this is table data item, and this time I do a RIMD. Okay. Is that understood? Yeah, that's understood. So let's do a control F5. But in this case, that was a good question. I didn't know that. I learned that today. So
even I was a bit surprised.
Right. So when you do a permission set this time, and go to your D365 basic. Here it is. And if I do my permission, and if I filter it for 27 by 60,000 and higher, what happened? Okay, object ID, sorry, 27 by 60,000 higher. I see this time it is yes, 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 right? And for the 60,000, it's indirect, 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 based on the case sensitivity of what you have given here.
Yeah, actually, we people are not habitual of case sensitive things because
Right.
never ever been case sensitive. That is why.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, utilize that. I'll come back next week. We'll be talking about what's new for sure next week about the similar things, and I'll see why we were not able to add permission set, and we'll talk about it next week. But yeah, I based on the MSDN article that I read, that should be possible. So I'll check that. Okay. So the next one that I have is also super cool, which is about the teaching tip. Now, if you have played with Business Center 16, you might have seen this pop-up popping up so many times in different windows where Microsoft have configured this. The teaching tip feature that is added by Microsoft is completely, works on a Boolean. If you are an expert user, have used system for all these years, you don't want to utilize, you can just disable this. At the same time, for the partner community, it's fully extensible. So you can add your teaching tips into the base objects using table extension, using page or report extensions. And the whole teaching tip works based on a property called about text that is added in request pages and on the pages and actions. And it applies to page, actions, parts of pages, field, and request page. So let's quickly see what that is first and how we extend that. So if I come back to my Business Central and I go to a page, let's say posted sales invoices, I guess it's there. I click on here, I see this about posted sales invoice, and I've already taken a tour, so that's why it's saying, do you want to retake the tour? When I retake a tour, it gives me some tips around about this screen, that this is the final invoice number, this is the amount that need to be paid, and from here you can see your profit from sales by clicking on this particular action called statistics, and it shows you that. So it kind of walks through a new user about the fields in a screen which is available. So now let's try, as we have pretty less time remaining, let's try to extend the similar page and try to add some teaching tips so that we understand what that is. So if I do my posted sales invoices dot page extension dot al, sorry, if I do it a page extension and give it a number, and let's say teaching extension on my posted sales invoices. Okay. So just for the demo, I'll just use the fields area to make it simple, I guess. If I have to add that, I'll just modify the property on one of the field. Let's see which fields are there. Let's say due date. Okay. So let's modify the due date because I want user to understand what a due date is when he's joining new in or using Business Central for the first time. And then I can just add a property called about text. So I can say that, okay, this is the date on which this invoice is due. Okay. And then I can also modify a field. Let's say customer name. And in the similar way, I can just add about text, or this is the customer name for which this invoice is created. Okay, whatever that details are. So the cool part is it doesn't take the details that partners have added at the end. It just does that based on the field order which is available. So like we have added the teaching tip in the fields between number and the remaining amount. So earlier, as it was going from the number directly to the remaining amount, it should now respect what I have added in middle. So if I come here, click here, let's say retake tour, let's say this is the final invoice number, and there this is R1, which is this is the customer name for which invoice is created. This is the due date on which the invoice is due, and then it goes back to the base Microsoft teaching tip about what remains to be paid and follows the same order. Once the user understood about the system and they don't want to utilize this, as I said earlier, they can always come to my settings and disable the teaching tip. And once they disable it, they'll start not getting these pop-ups when they navigate into different screens. I'll have to refresh this, but yeah, it should stop showing the teaching tip to the users once they have disabled that on their settings. So as I said, it's completely on hands of user for how long they want to utilize this, and then when they want to disable. Oh, it still shows that. That's bad. It
Can we
shouldn't.
add the header, like about the one, like the default tip has a header on it?
Right. Okay. Okay. So yeah, like this one you're saying, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So if you go back into your extension, there was also a property called about title. Okay. And using this, you can say due date of invoice. And in the same way, you can come here and say about title is equals to customer name, and you can just publish this. Now it becomes super important for two kind of situation. One for teaching new people that are in your customer organization to kind of how they utilize different screens. And at the same time, it helps you while you're building your custom functionality to kind of you how they even they know the base system, how they can actually utilize things that you have added into the product. So they can always come here, click on it, retake tour, final invoice number, the customer name, and it gives you what that is. And I'm pretty sure it follows the same rule as extension is. If I change the remaining amount details in my extension, then it should respect, and I'm assuming that it should respect mine. So let's give it a try also, I guess. What happens if I change something which already have some this remaining amount? Well, that's how the modify one should work. It overwrites what's from Microsoft and it says remaining amount, and then this is the remaining amount. This invoice. Okay. So what I have done this time is I have overridden the title and the text for the teaching tip that Microsoft have added for the remaining amount field. And I haven't tested it, but I'm pretty sure that Microsoft should respect what we have done and what is available in the base. Okay. Number, name, due date, and yes, it starts respecting whatever you as partner have added into your page extensions. And the same rule goes for your request pages. So that, I guess that was the last thing that I was able to figure out this week, and then we'll continue talking about these things next week as we go through it. So any questions or any thoughts about anything that you saw today? Sounds interesting, sounds good.
It did sound interesting, obviously. But don't forget about my problems, Saraf, please.
No problems. I'll make sure that happens. I'll give it a try.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, if there are no questions, I guess this is a good time to leave and enjoy your weekend. We'll see you next week.
Saurabh, just one thing.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What I was thinking, can we make this meeting from 8 to 9?
That'll be so early for me because I have dinner at that time. It's my dinner time, 8 to 9 ish.
Dinner comes first, obviously.
Yeah, because earlier these were 10 ish. Okay. And then people requested to go a half an hour early because it was not matching to US times, I guess.
Okay,
So
okay,
we
okay.
switched it
Yeah,
here. But
okay, no problem.
and then I also prepare for these only on Saturday. So I need some time to kind of prepare all this, right?
Okay, no issues.
Okay. So yeah.
Yeah, fine. That's okay.
Enjoy your weekend and then we'll see you next week.
Thank you,
Okay,
Saraf.
thank you.
Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you.
Thanks.